Most men believe they are chasing love, but the truth is, they are chasing validation. And the moment you start chasing validation, you lose power. Marcus Aurelius never spoke about relationships the way modern dating coaches do, but his philosophy reveals a dangerous truth. The one who needs less controls more. If you feel anxious when she does not reply, if your mood depends on her attention, if you fear losing her more than losing yourself, then this message is not comfortable, but it is necessary. Marcus Aurelius taught that power begins inside, not in control over others, but in control over your own mind. In relationships, this principle changes everything. When you need her more than she needs you, you surrender your emotional authority. You start acting, speaking, and even thinking in ways that are not aligned with who you truly are. And she feels it, whether she can explain it or not. Let us be very clear. This is not about cruelty. This is not about manipulation. This is not about pretending you do not care. Stoicism is not coldness. Stoicism is strength without desperation. It is love without attachment to outcome. Marcus Aurelius warned that when we attach our peace to something outside our control, we become slaves to it. A person is outside your control. Her feelings, her choices, her future actions, none of these belong to you. Yet most people build their entire emotional world around another human being. They wake up thinking about her. They go to sleep worrying about her. Their confidence rises when she is warm and collapses when she is distant. This is not love. This is dependency. Marcus Aurelius wrote that if you are distressed by anything external, the pain is not due to the thing itself, but to your estimate of it. Read that again. The silence from her does not hurt you. Your interpretation does. The delayed reply does not weaken you. Your fear does. The possibility of losing her does not destroy you. Your belief that you cannot stand without her does. Power in a relationship does not come from dominance, it comes from self-sufficiency. When you are complete within yourself, you stop begging life for reassurance. And something strange happens. People lean toward you. Because humans are drawn to stability. They are drawn to calm. They are drawn to someone who does not collapse under emotional pressure. When a woman senses that your happiness depends on her, she feels burdened. Even if she loves you, even if she enjoys your presence, neediness is heavy. It silently asks, "Please don't leave me because I don't know who I am without you." That is not attractive. That is frightening. Marcus Aurelius believed that every person must stand firm like a cliff, against which waves continuously break. The waves do not stop. The cliff does not chase the waves, it simply stands. In relationships, this means you do not chase emotional highs or run from emotional lows. You stay rooted. This is where many misunderstand Stoic strength. They think it means being emotionless. Wrong. Stoicism teaches awareness, not suppression. You feel attraction, you feel desire, you feel love, but you do not let these feelings command you. You observe them, you guide them. You do not let them rule your actions. If you constantly seek reassurance, you slowly train the other person to see you as unstable. You ask questions you already know the answer to. Do you still care? Are you mad at me? Did I do something wrong? Each question leaks power. Each question announces fear. Marcus Aurelius would ask you a simple question. Why are you handing over authority of your inner state to someone else? Why should another person decide whether you are calm or anxious today? Why should their attention define your worth? When you need her more than she needs you, you begin negotiating your values. You tolerate disrespect you would normally reject. You ignore red flags because losing her feels worse than losing your dignity. You silence your truth to avoid conflict. And in doing so, you slowly disappear. And here is the paradox most people miss. The more you abandon yourself to keep her, the more likely you are to lose her. Because attraction is not built on sacrifice of self, it is built on presence of self. Marcus Aurelius believed that a person should never act against their own nature. Your nature is not to beg. Your nature is not to shrink. Your nature is not to live in fear of abandonment. Your nature is to grow, to stand, to endure. This does not mean you threaten to leave. It means you are prepared to leave if staying requires self-betrayal. That readiness alone changes the entire balance of the relationship. Not because you say it, but because you live it. When she knows that you choose her, not need her, the dynamic shifts. Choice is light, need is heavy. Choice says, I am whole and I invite you into my life. Need says, I am incomplete, please fill me. One inspires respect, the other invites control. Marcus Aurelius often reminded himself that everything is temporary. People change, feelings change, circumstances change. When you accept this fully, you stop clinging. And when you stop clinging, you stop suffocating the connection. You do not text to relieve anxiety. You text to communicate. You do not call to check if she is still there. You call because you genuinely want to share something. You do not give to secure love. You give because generosity is who you are. This inner posture is felt immediately. You become steady, predictable in your values, not in your reactions, calm in uncertainty, grounded when things are unclear, and this is where real power lives. Marcus Aurelius would tell you that the strongest person in the room is not the loudest, not the most demanding, not the most emotionally reactive. The strongest person is the one who can lose without breaking. When you know you will be fine without her, you show up better with her. You listen without fear. You speak without anxiety. You disagree without panic. You love without chains. This is not about pushing her away. It is about pulling yourself back, back to your center, back to your discipline, back to your purpose. Relationships are not meant to be the foundation of your identity. They are meant to be an addition to a life already in motion. Neediness does not appear overnight. It grows slowly, quietly, and most people do not notice it until they are already trapped inside it. At first it feels like love. Attention feels good. Connection feels warm. Being chosen feels validating. But Marcus Aurelius would warn you here. Anything that gives pleasure can also take power if you become dependent on it. The mind begins to attach meaning to another person. Her smile becomes approval. Her silence becomes rejection. Her presence becomes safety. Her absence becomes threat. And without realizing it, your emotional balance moves out of your hands and into hers. Marcus Aurelius believed that the mind is shaped by what it repeatedly focuses on. If you constantly think about her reactions, her moods, her messages, you slowly train your mind to orbit her, and whatever you orbit, you begin to serve. This is how neediness is born, not from weakness but from misplaced attention. Many men confuse intensity with intimacy. They believe that constant contact proves care, that emotional exposure proves closeness, that urgency proves importance. But Stoic philosophy teaches the opposite. What is truly valuable does not rush. What is strong does not panic. Neediness often begins when you abandon your own structure. Your routines weaken. Your goals fade into the background. Your discipline becomes flexible. You cancel plans for her. You delay growth for her. At first it feels noble, but over time you start to feel empty, and emptiness demands to be filled. This is when you start seeking emotional payment. You want reassurance. You want consistency. You want proof. You start watching her tone. You analyze her words. You search for hidden meaning in small changes. Marcus Aurelius would say, this is the mind suffering before it is harmed. The irony is painful. The more you seek certainty from her, the more uncertain the relationship becomes. Because uncertainty is not resolved through control. It is resolved through acceptance. And when you refuse to accept uncertainty, you try to dominate it. That is when tension enters the connection. Marcus Aurelius constantly reminded himself to separate what is in his control from what is not. Your effort is in your control. Your integrity is in your control. Your actions are in your control. Her feelings are not. Her loyalty is not. Her future decisions are not. When you try to control what you cannot, you lose control of what you can. You become reactive, you lose patience, you become hypersensitive. And once reactivity enters, power leaves. This is why women often say they feel pressure without being able to explain it. Pressure is invisible need. Pressure is emotional demand without words. Pressure is the feeling that someone else's stability depends on you. A woman does not want to be responsible for your sense of worth, not because she is cruel, but because it is unnatural. Marcus Aurelius believed each person must carry their own soul. No one can do it for you. When you begin to dissolve neediness, you do not start by changing your behavior toward her. You start by changing your relationship with yourself. Stoicism always works from the inside out. First, you reclaim your attention. You stop monitoring. You stop checking. You stop waiting, not as a tactic, but as a decision. You decide that your time belongs to your values, not your fears. Second, you rebuild your structure. Discipline creates independence. When your days are full of meaningful effort, your mind has less space for anxious attachment. Marcus Aurelius wrote that waste no more time arguing about what a good man should be. Be one. Action stabilizes the mind. Third, you accept the possibility of loss. This is the hardest step, and the most powerful. When you truly accept that she could leave, and you would survive, fear loosens its grip. Acceptance is not pessimism, it is emotional maturity. Most people say they accept loss, but secretly hope it will never happen. Stoicism asks more. It asks you to look directly at impermanence and still stand steady. To say, if this ends, I remain. When this acceptance becomes real, your energy changes. You stop trying to secure the relationship. You stop auditioning for love. You stop performing. And ironically, this is often when attraction deepens, because authenticity returns. Marcus Aurelius emphasized acting without attachment to outcome. This does not mean acting without care. It means acting without fear. You show interest because it is true. You give effort because it aligns with your character, not because you are afraid of losing someone. This internal shift removes emotional manipulation from your behavior. You are no longer giving to get. You are no longer kind to be chosen. You are kind because kindness is your nature. Power re-enters when you stop bargaining with life, when you no longer say, if I do this, will she stay? And instead say, this is who I am, regardless. This does not guarantee the relationship will last. Stoicism never promises outcomes. It promises strength. And strength is the ability to endure any outcome without self-destruction. A relationship built on need is fragile. A relationship built on choice is resilient. Choice requires two complete individuals standing side by side, not leaning on each other to avoid falling. Marcus Aurelius would remind you that nothing truly valuable can be held by force. Love that stays only because it is needed is not love. It is obligation. Love that stays by choice is respect. When you no longer need her to complete you, everything about the relationship changes, especially how you communicate. Words become cleaner. Silences become lighter. Conflict becomes less threatening. Marcus Aurelius believed that clarity of speech comes from clarity of mind, and a calm mind does not speak to defend itself. It speaks to express truth. When you are needy, every conversation carries hidden fear. You explain too much. You justify your actions. You soften your boundaries. You apologize for things that do not require apology. Your words try to secure safety instead of convey meaning. And people feel this imbalance even if they cannot name it. But when you are grounded, you speak without urgency. You say what you mean and stop. You listen without preparing your defense. You allow pauses. You allow disagreement. You allow the other person to have their own experience without rushing to manage it. Marcus Aurelius taught that we should never let emotions drag us like a slave behind a cart. In relationships, this means you do not argue to win affection. You do not compromise values to avoid tension. You do not stay silent when honesty is required. This does not make you harsh. It makes you trustworthy, because consistency creates safety, and safety creates attraction. Conflict is where power imbalance becomes most visible. A needy person fears conflict because conflict threatens abandonment, so they retreat, submit, or explode. A grounded person understands that conflict is simply friction between two perspectives. It is not a verdict on their worth. When you are prepared to lose the relationship rather than lose your integrity, conflict loses its power over you. You can disagree calmly. You can set boundaries clearly. You can walk away from disrespect without drama. Marcus Aurelius would call this living in accordance with reason. Boundaries are not walls. They are standards. They communicate self-respect without aggression. When you say no without guilt, you teach others how to treat you. When you tolerate behavior that violates your values, you silently teach them the opposite. Here is the truth many people resist. Attraction is not sustained by constant agreement. It is sustained by polarity. Two strong individuals with their own gravity. When one collapses into the other, polarity disappears. And so does desire. Needing less does not mean loving less. It means loving without fear. Fear poisons presence. Fear turns affection into control. Fear turns care into surveillance. Marcus Aurelius wrote that the soul becomes dyed with the color of its thoughts. If your thoughts are dominated by fear of loss, your presence becomes tense. If your thoughts are anchored in self-trust, your presence becomes calm. Calm is magnetic. Long-term attraction is not about intensity. Intensity burns out. It is about stability mixed with mystery. Stability comes from consistency of character. Mystery comes from a life that is full beyond the relationship. When you have purpose, discipline, and direction, you stop demanding that the relationship be everything. You bring energy instead of extracting it. You share instead of cling. You invite instead of chase. And here is the quiet truth behind the title. She needs your stability more than you need her validation, not because you are superior, but because emotional strength is rare, and rare things are valued. A woman may enjoy attention, but she trusts strength. She may like affection, but she respects self-mastery. Marcus Aurelius would remind you that respect is earned through character, not pursuit. If she stays because she chooses you. If she leaves without destroying you. In both outcomes, you remain whole. That is real power. You do not threaten to walk away. You simply know you can. You do not withhold love to manipulate. You give love freely without bargaining. You do not demand loyalty. You inspire it through presence. When you live this way, relationships stop being a battlefield and become a shared path. Two people walking side by side, not one dragging the other or leaning for survival. Marcus Aurelius spent his life preparing for loss, not because he was pessimistic, but because he valued freedom. The man who can lose without collapsing cannot be controlled. And that is the final truth about power in a relationship. Power is not about who cares less. It is about who stands firm when caring deeply. This is not dating advice. This is life advice. Because the way you handle attachment in relationships is the same way you handle fear, uncertainty, and loss everywhere else in life. Marcus Aurelius did not promise happiness. He promised resilience. And resilience is what allows love to exist without desperation. If you found value in this lesson, Support the channel by liking the video. Subscribe for more Stoic wisdom, mindset shifts, and deep reflections. And share this video, because strength spreads quietly, one mind at a time.